The movie I'm going to talk about today is Encanto, the new Disney movie. This was a movie that I was really not looking forward to that much. It looked fine from the trailers. Like, I remember seeing the trailers and it looked colorful. It looked pretty in its own way. Like, the backgrounds looked really nice and it looked all right. It just didn't seem to be adding anything that new to the table. So I was worried about it feeling like too much like any Pixar film, basically. I'm going to admit, I have been feeling as of late a kind of fatigue of this kind of visual style that Pixar has established. Okay, I know this movie is not Pixar, but even the animated Disney films have a very kind of boring look to them in terms of the character design. So many of these new animated movies these days, the 3D animated ones, have the character design is so freaking dull. And it's not just like Disney or Pixar. You've also got like movies like Mitchell's versus the Machines, where all the characters look like... Well, actually, the girl in it looks exactly like the same type of girl as Mirabelle in this movie. And then you've got, the family look exactly like The Incredibles. Or like something even like Klaus, which is a very good movie. I really like Klaus. You can see it on Netflix. It's a Christmas movie. The main character looks like freaking Arthur Christmas, who looks like the dude from Ratatouille, who looks like you know what I mean? Like there's it feels like there's a lack of creativity there. Even with like the look of the characters in Frozen and Frozen 2, I thought was more interesting. A little bit more interesting because it was different enough from the characters, like the way the characters looked in Tangled, that I thought it was kind of a nice slight variation on the look of those characters. But now everything just looks the same. Like even Luca, they tried to change the look of the characters a little bit to make their faces like a little bit rounder. They have more of a Steven Universe kind of look to them, the characters, crossed with Studio Ghibli. And I feel like the new movie Turning Red, the new Pixar movie, is also kind of leaning more towards Studio Ghibli in terms of an influence, Now we're getting a lot of like pretend anime, 3D animation stuff. Encanto kind of falls like in the middle of that, where the look of it was nice, colorful, animation seems slick. It just doesn't look interesting. That's what was holding me back from this movie. I knew that the songs were written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. I don't have a huge problem with that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy Hamilton. I thought Hamilton was pretty fun. And I've liked other stuff that he's done as well. I'm, as an actor, like himself, not sure about him. Not really too keen on his acting style or his singing even. But like as I can tell that he knows how to write a good song, and he does. So I didn't have a problem with that. The story of this movie is about this magical house, right? The way this happens is that you've got this lady, you've got this community. You've got this community of people who are driven out of their homes because there's some kind of armed conflict. They don't really go into that. They just show like some bad guys showing up, burning the village, whatever. So they run away, and there was this girl who had like triplets, and she's got her husband with her, and then he gets killed, right? And then we cut to like later on, and basically there was this magical candle that she had for whatever reason, and the magical candle created a whole new house for everybody to live in. And every so often there's a kid gets to go to one of the doors of the house, turn the knob, and they are gifted with a special power. So there's a girl who's really, really strong, like super strong. She can carry like an entire house over her head, basically. You've got a girl who can control the weather, sort of. The weather is an extension of her emotions, basically. You've got a girl who can hear really far. You've got one who controls flowers. Every kid, every so often, gets a power until one point where Mirabelle, who's the main character of this movie, she gets to the door, the magic door, turns it, nothing happens. So she gets no power. And she's the only one this has ever happened to. There's a little kid called Antonio, I believe, who later on, this is the next time, the magic door thing is about to happen. He gets his powers fine. So it was literally just her who didn't get anything. And the powers are cool. I like the whole idea of the magic doors where you open it. It's like on the inside, it's not just a normal room. It's like as huge as you could possibly imagine. Like the Antonio gets like Dr. Dolittle powers where he can talk to animals. So he opens the door and there's this whole freaking giant tree with like animals everywhere. It's really cool to look at. Really, really cool to look at. It's a really good idea as well. Love the idea of this house with like these rooms in it that just looked like normal rooms, but you open it, it's like this huge other world in there. That's really cool. So Mirabelle obviously is disappointed. She's kind of coping with the fact that she has no powers and doesn't understand why she doesn't. And at one point, during the ceremony of the kid who gets animal powers getting his powers, she sees cracks forming on the house. Like the house is starting to fall apart. The candle is dimming. Things are going really wrong. The doors are also dimming. So she alerts everybody. And the old lady, who was the girl we saw at the beginning with the triplets, the old lady is just like, she comes out and everything's fine. She doesn't really understand what's going on. So Mirabelle's like, what the fuck? But later on, she finds out that the old lady actually does believe her. There is something happening to the house. Everyone's kind of powers are fading a little bit. The cracks are forming. But the old lady doesn't know what to do with that. So Mirabelle takes it upon herself to try and investigate this a little bit. And she goes asking some of the other girls who live in the house, like the ones with the powers, what's going on, what have you heard, etc. And her search leads her to a guy called Bruno, who is like her uncle who has disappeared at some point. And she goes to his room, finds that he had a vision of her with cracks forming in the house behind her. And so she tries to track him down, and he's been living, it turns out, this whole time inside the house, but like between the walls kind of thing. And then it becomes about like, what is the meaning of all this? Why is Mirabelle a curse to this house? Is she the one who's meant to save the house? What do the visions mean? Bruno even like sits down, has another vision, which is just an extension of the last one he had with a bit more information. They try to figure out what that means. They think it means fixing the cracks within the family. So Mirabelle sets out to do that. Unfortunately, there are certain cracks that just kind of cannot be mended that easily. And the whole house, spoilers, the whole house ends up kind of falling apart. But obviously not forever. Some other stuff happens after that. A nicer resolution, right? Now, this movie looks nice. The character design is dull. We've seen this character design 1,000 times before. I'm a little bit tired of it personally. I also don't really think this movie's funny at all. This movie is nowhere near. It's like, think of it as Coco minus the emotions and the laughs. Okay? Like, Coco was awesome because not just because it looked good, but because it had this really cool concept, and you got to really kind of dig into this concept. Plus, on top of that, the movie was funny. The sad moments would really hit you, especially at the very end. Like, they would hit you on like a deep level. You'd be like, fuck. And you had a murder mystery in there as well. So there was a lot of good, cool stuff in that movie. In this movie, you just have the magical house and Mirabelle. And there's really not much more to that. I wanted the house to crumble, because the house is going to crumble. That's going to happen, and they're going to put it back together. That's going to happen from the offset. So I feel like that should have happened halfway through the movie. And then Mirabelle might have had to go on a different adventure, by herself, or with a funny, a character with her, or like Bruno or something. Or all the girls with the powers would have to set off on an adventure themselves to try and figure out what's going on. But no, you're really kind of just in and around the house the entire time, the entire movie. And this is not to say that this movie doesn't really give you anything to sink your teeth into. It does throw some nice little twists here and there, some nice, clever little revelations. And it does some stuff with the character arcs that is interesting. I like that these characters are not as one-dimensional as they first appear. The strong lady looks like she's really enjoying doing all this, heavy lifting. Turns out she's a bit more complicated than that. Same thing with the girl with the flowers. She seems just like flat out mean and very vain, but there's more to her again, and I think that's good. I think that's really well done. And this is all illustrated through the songs, okay? So the whole movie has this kind of like structure where it's like Mirabelle goes to speak to someone and they have a song. Then she leaves, other stuff happens. She goes to speak to someone else, they have a song. So we get one song after another like that. And for me, one of the big problems with this movie, besides the fact that the visuals could have been a lot more interesting to look at, is the songs are not memorable. It's the Tangled thing all over again, where Tangled, awesome movie. Very underrated in my book. I think Tangled is better than Frozen as a movie. The problem is, the songs in Tangled, who can remember those songs? Nobody. Those songs were so not memorable, they completely ruined, whatever potential this franchise had. No one remembers the songs from Tangled. Everyone remembers the songs from Frozen, and that's how it got the upper hand. This movie, same problem. Everyone remembers the songs from Coco. No one remembers the songs from this movie, and they are not bad songs. They're well written. They're quite clever. They're funny. They're good songs individually. They're just not particularly memorable. There were even a couple of songs where I was listening to them pretty closely, and I was like, hey, you know what? I might remember this part of the song. Totally gone. Instantly, once the movie ended, totally gone. And Lin-Manuel Miranda has written some cool songs in this movie, but they're just not good enough to really make the movie stand out in any real way. And this movie is a little bit too soppy. There's something very cheesy about this film, and it's a shame because I feel like it really did try to have some emotion, some heart to it. You can tell that, the people who made this movie really do care about the characters and stuff like that and their story. It's just very cheesy and corny, unfortunately. Everything from like the performances of the characters to even like the songs and stuff. There's a very cheesy aspect to all of this, and it's unfortunate because there's some clever kind of Pixar-y aspects to this movie as well that I feel could have been fleshed out a little bit more. Like, I really like the house itself. I like the magical house. The magical house is really cool. I really wanted this movie. I feel just needed there was something really missing from this movie. Whether it's a villain would have been cool in this movie. It would have really kind of helped bring things together a little bit, or a villain or a big adventure. I felt like we were getting somewhere when Mirabelle was like going into Bruno's room, and it's like a million stairs, and that felt very Indiana Jonesy. And I felt like they could have done a lot more with the rooms themselves. I think I like the idea of the rooms having unexplored elements to them. And also, there's a lot of stuff that they set up early on that never pays off. I feel like the Antonio thing with the animals, they make a big deal of that initially. And then it's kind of like, he's not really in the movie that much. No one cares. The shape-shifting guy, same kind of thing. They use it for jokes here and there, but it's not particularly useful to anything. So I feel like this movie was overall pretty weak, but not bad. It's not a bad movie. I think if you've got kids and you want to just keep them occupied for an hour and 45 minutes, put the movie on. It looks pretty. They'll have fun, listening to the songs. There's a capybara in it. Capybaras are cute. I think they could have done more with the capybara as well, to be honest with you. But by the end, they're not going to be, it's not going to stick with them too much. They'll just remember the magic house. And even that's not really that special, to be honest. I feel like that's something that Disney's done countless times at this point. You've got the magic, it's not really a magic house, but you've got the house from The Sword in the Stone, where everything's kind of dancing around. You got the freaking Beauty and the Beast. What else? I'm trying to think of other magic houses. The Monster House, that's another magic house. I feel like there's a Studio Ghibli movie or two with some magic stuff in the house as well. So, yeah, this movie needed something else. It needed a better core story to it, instead of just kind of Mirabelle investigates what's wrong with the house, and then she figures it out, and then she has to fix it. I think that's not enough to make this movie really stand out. It also needed some catchier songs. There's some funny stuff in this movie. I did like the dancing. At one point, there's like the song about like the girl who's really strong. There's like sexy dancing donkeys. I appreciate the sexy dancing donkeys in the background. That was genius. Really appreciated that. A couple of funny jokes in there, but for the most part, this movie is more cheesy and corny than it is funny. I'm very tired of the look of these characters. I'm very tired of this kind of Pixar storytelling gimmick of like, oh, you need a funny moment here, and then you need a sad moment here, and then you need a funny moment here, but always go back to the sad moment. Feels very like a boardroom, design kind of script, and it's not, doesn't feel like organic, and it doesn't feel unique. I'm not a big fan of also the animation itself. I'm not gonna lie. I'm happy to go back. I'm ready to go back to 2D animation full time, guys. I'm ready for Disney to just back it up with the 3D shit. We're going back, folks. Pinocchio 2.0, let's go, and just start over. Because this 3D shit, unless we can make the characters feel different, unless we can do something very different with the look of these movies, I don't think I can sit through too many more of these, okay? Turning Red, I really don't want to see that movie. I'm going to see it if it's free on Disney Plus, but I'm not going to pay to see that movie. Okay, Turning Red just looks the same kind of character design, just with more of a kind of a Studio Ghibli, kind of ripping off a bit more Studio Ghibli. But if you're going to keep ripping off Studio Ghibli, how about you rip off like Spirited Away and you make a freaking 2D animated film with just a little bit of 3D in there if you want? I don't know. I'm ready to turn the page on the CG 3D animated film feature crap. Let's move on to something else, or have a completely different style. Take a page from. There's been some really solid Chinese animated films like Nerja or Jiangxia, which was very good as well. Interesting art style there. Maybe take a little bit, some ideas from that. Maybe European animation as well. As it stands, though, it's a pretty harmless movie. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, if you watch this movie, you'll have a bad time. You won't. It's okay. It's just okay, though. You'll sit through it. You'll be like, I was reasonably entertained. But this is not Moana. Moana is so much better than this movie. And not just because the songs are freaking awesome in Moana, but the movie itself, I felt, was more interesting to look at as well. Because instead of just having, you've got this girl just kind of on the boat by herself, going on an adventure, and I think that in itself is exciting, It's like, what's gonna happen, And then there's like a crazy crab out of nowhere. There's some cool stuff in that movie. Moana is what this movie should have been. This movie should have been as good as Moana, and it was not even close. There's just they put a lot of effort into making this movie look pop. Make it look like it pops, very colorful and very hip songs, and kind of a nice little magical story. But we need more than that. And this movie really never rises as high as it could have risen, and it's a shame. So it's a little bit of a disappointment, this movie. Again, not a bad movie, not a great movie. I would just say it's okay. So it's not going to blow you away. If you want to watch it, it's on Disney Plus right now for free, I believe. So check it out if you want to. Otherwise, maybe support, a 2D animated movie. Just go watch that. And let's bring those movies back. We need some different styles. We need to breathe life into this Pixar, hell world that we're living in right now. Nothing against Pixar. I just think, we've seen it. Let's take it up a notch. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.